Places where I've got to do a little square patch because there was like a hole that we're not going to be using and it needs a little square patch, so I'm using just a little galvanized tin that I've been using for marking holes for the rivets.
Where'd that piece come from?
This is just one of those things that you use when you're putting two pieces of wood together, doing like a flush, you know, a butt edge mount. And so this is where you put the screws, but it just works out to be kind of a nice little template for screw holes. So I don't know, it worked.
All right.
There's other more expensive tools out there for doing that same thing. But, so I've got a square marked. This is not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm going to do my best to cut this fairly much along those lines. And then to give it the same character as the Airstream itself, I'm going to round the corners and give it that Airstream curve. So I'm going to start by just cutting the corners. Woo! That's got a lot of reflective power. I mean, you could draw this if you want, using a little circle template, but I'm just eyeballing it. Some of these won't even be seen, but it's the idea. And then I get that little corner nipped.
The hands of a goddess.
Who's the goddess of aluminum? That's what I want to know. So that's pretty close. And then I have I mean, the more you can use these snips with to get, the less filing you have to do. So then I have a mill file. That I'll use. Or if you've got a bench grinder, this is a whole lot easier. You can just go to your garage and use your bench grinder. From where I cut it, so I'm gonna like file that at a slight angle just to smooth it so there's no cuts, no sharp edges. Thanks for finishing my sentence for me.
I'm good at that. You know.
It's real hard for me to talk and do this kind of stuff at the same time. You know, when you're concentrating on something. This gets that last little bit of a burr off of it, as well as smooths the edges maybe a little bit more. Okay, I've got a little bit of Sharpie left on there, so just to get that off, I'm going to take a little bit of this goof off. And that'll clean that off. Of course, I'm about to put more on it when I mark my holes that I'm going to drill. but that sort of cleans up the surface. And I'm not too worried about the scratch because I'm going to scuff this whole piece since it's going to be painted over, so I'm not too worried about that. But let me go get a tape measure and I'm going to mark the holes that I'm in the very center, about 1/2 inch in. Maybe 3/8 of an inch in. Yeah, actually between 1/4 and 3/8. And then I'm going to put one on each corner right in the middle of that curve. So I've marked where my rivet holes are going to go. As long as I set it like right over this. Okay. So then I'm going to drill the holes, and you can see where I've been doing that.
What size bit is that?
It's the right size.
Make sure you got the right size drill bit, people.
It's the right size drill bit for the rivets that we're using.
Right.
And is it 5/30 seconds?
I don't know. I'll put that in the description.
Okay, yeah. There's people that do that.
I know. You're descended from it, probably.
I probably am. Who knows? My grandfather might have done that. Okay, I'm just going to get a little more of that Sharpie stuff off.
Why?
Well, because I'm going to prime it and paint it, but a lot of times when you're painting and you're painting over Sharpie marker, it just seems to bleed through. So the other thing that I'm going to do to make sure it's ready for paint is I'm going to scuff it up just a little bit. So I'm going to grab my sander. So that's scuffed it up well enough that when I get ready to prime it, the primer will stick to it. And I'll roll the edge before I put it on. And anyway, so that's going to be a patch for, you know, I've got several places where wires had come through and I don't need them. They're going to be in a closet, so it's not even going to show, but there you go. Little patch. Band-Aid.